Jamaica love. We wanna feel Jamaica love. Everybody wanna visit Jamaica. Jamaica love.
Jamaica's rise to independence was rather gradual, freedom being an idea that was slowly introduced bit by bit into the nation over time. At the time of independence, Jamaica went through changes culturally, economically, and politically. Over time, Jamaica went from a colony that was developing under the cultural standards of another to a nation that had to break free from those foreign rituals and evolve into a nation with ways of its own. Jamaica was colonized by Britain in 1655, taking it from Spanish control and remaining as ruler for 300 years. The island had a preferential treatment from Britain, being that they were their main customer for the purchase of sugarcane. In 1662, there were 400 slaves on the island among the sugarcane plantation, and by 1673, there were 9,504. Over time, the population of enslaved Africans had risen to 700,000. Just like in America, religion was imposed on the slaves as a way to control them. While the Church of England greatly impacted the enslaved, there were many slaves rebellions, including Tacky's Rebellion in 1760, Jamaica's Second Maroon War in 1795, and the Morant Bay Rebellion in 1865. Slavery was abolished in 1834 by the British Emancipation Act, while Jamaica was still colonized by Great Britain. There was universal adult suffrage under a constitution granted by the British government to end Crown Colony government, which had been enforced since 1865, when the House of Assemblies had abolished itself in the aftermath of the Morant Bay Rebellion. Cabinet government was introduced in 1957 with a council of ministers headed by a chief minister, which had executive authority. Coming into the 1960s, a time of change all over the world with events like the Freedom Riders challenging segregation on interstate buses in 1961 and the Vietnam War that inspired a plethora of anti-war rallies, Jamaica was undoubtedly in an era that made the island bound to face its own critical changes. But what made gaining independence seem so easy? And why was it such a big turning point in Jamaican history? After World War II, Britain was not able to maintain the colonies given the debt from being involved in the war. During the war, Britain had to take out a $586 million loan from the U.S. that was to be paid in part annually for approximately 50 years. Unlike with the United States, Jamaica was able to request and gain independence at a time when it wasn't in Britain's best interest to say no.
The British flag, which has flown over Jamaica for the past 3 centuries, is about to be replaced by the Jamaica national flag, heralding the birth of the new nation. The lights go out. The Union Jack is lowered, and the new flag of Jamaica raised.
Just about the time of the independence, the Jamaican musicians wanted to have a music that they can call Jamaican music.
Well, Jamaica came up with a unique rhythm. I didn't think it was deliberately done. I think it was an attempt to play something and it came out that way. It became known as reggae, but it started off as ska, which was putting all the accent on a different beat than what is normally where the accent is. It would be on the off beat instead of the on.
Cultural institutes such as the School of Music, founded in 1962 by Vera Moody, and the Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts were given the job of repairing the psychological and spiritual damage inflicted on the Jamaican people by years of subordination, though they had also been affected by colonialism's legacy. The most popular cultural development after independence was reggae music, a genre that rose to fame beginning with artists such as Bob Marley and Peter Tosh. Reggae music also served as an artistic platform for the Rastafarians, a religious sect that was not widely accepted during the time,
but as of 2001, among the 2.7 million Jamaicans, 24,020 claim to be Rastafarians. Rastafarians are known to use reggae music to express their philosophy of searching for peace and living life to make the world better for everyone, not just oneself. In the late 1990s, worldwide annual sales of reggae recordings were an estimated US $1.2 billion. Reggae promoted the tourist industry, the source of nearly a half of the country's foreign earnings. There were also changes in the ways of education. For example, students no longer received the O-levels or Oxford exam because this assessed them on the British experience. Instead, an exam parallel to the O-levels was administered that tested students on the Jamaican experience. Another change to education was the use of patois in literature. Prior to independence, patois was only to be used at home. But after 1962, not only was the use of the dialect supported in the classroom, it was used in Jamaican literature, especially by poets such as Joan Andrea Hutchinson and Louise Bennett Coverley. In 1974, the People's National Party formed the Jamaican Movement for the Advancement of Literacy, which hoped to provide adult education programs to 100,000 adults a year. Literacy rates increased from 16.3% in 1871 to 47.2% in 1911, 67.9% in 1943, and more than 85% by the late 1970s. Still, not all changes were seemingly positive. For example, not everyone saw the cultural changes as beneficial to society.
With the emergence of the dialect into everyday life, the older generation are saying, we were better off, our kids were better, we're learning more, we're doing much better under the British system. The young people not seeing it that way because they can see that they have their own determination.
Under British rule, Jamaica did not have to search for other customers on the world market for main exports such as sugar canes and bananas. However, after independence, this became an issue. When Great Britain joined the European Community in 1967, later to be known as the European Union in 1993, the country opened itself up to the world market as it released its long-standing colonies from the economical servitude they have been a part of. This posed a problem for Jamaica as it meant that the nation would lose its biggest customer, thus throwing a hard blow at the economy. In 1960, compared to Barbados, a nation that gained its independence in 1966, Jamaica wasn't doing so well economically. The real GDP per capita was $3,395 in Barbados and $208 in Jamaica. Back then, the income gap was only $1,187. As in 2002, that gap had grown to $5,269. Being that the initial conditions were similar for both countries at the time of independence, this shows that losing Britain was a major customer that had damaged the economic growth of the country.
There was also the issue of political violence between the Jamaica Labour Party and the People's National Party. There is always a presence of violence in Jamaica, but particularly around the elections and events of the sort. The number of murders went up especially around the elections of 1972, 1976, and 1980. However, times of peace were presented by reggae artist Bob Marley with performances like the Smile Jamaica concert and the One Love Peace concert, though when the reggae icon was not in Jamaica, the same change in violence occurred.
Overall, Jamaica changed for the better in terms of education and cultural identity, but with changes for the worse with the emergence of political violence and a weak economy. Was independence really the best choice for the future of Jamaica, or was it just something to tickle their pride?